with the first pick here with Traivs Hunter. He doesn't have a position. He's an athlete, Lige.
For sure.
And let's start there, Travis. I know it's a question that you've answered probably a million times, but this is what fans want to know. And when you talk to NFL teams, number one, where do they see you, cornerback or wide receiver? And where do you feel most comfortable if the answer is anything other than cornerback and wide receiver?
I mean, I feel comfortable at playing both. I mean, I went to some meetings. Some of my meetings was receiver and some of them was corner. So I think that's still up in the air.
So, Travis, you played over 1,400 snaps last year on offense and defense. And just the physical aspect of that is out of this world, Ryan. I want to know what the mental preparation was like for you on a week-to-week basis, because I don't think people talk about that enough and give you your just due, because not only do you need to know all the checks on the offensive side, you got to know them on the defensive side. So what was a work week like you preparation-wise mentally?
Just studying. I just study a lot, you know. We're in football season. That's all you got right now. There's nothing else to be thinking about. So my mental was always great. You know, I love this game, so it was nothing hard, no pressure on me. Just go out there. I didn't have to think for it. Just go out there and play football. You know, my coaches make it very easy for me.
He's also very easy to watch. I went back and watched his interceptions. I didn't have time to watch the touchdowns, so I just watched the interceptions. And, man, the athleticism, you forget at times how athletic and how different he is on a field full of guys who have some juice. You said at one time you wanted to outdo Coach Prime.
Yes, sir.
What does that look like, and how do you get to that? How do you measure what outdoing Coach Prime looks like?
Okay, well, I need 3 Super Bowl rings, and I also got to play good enough to get a gold jacket. So,
well, you got the Heisman. So did Coach Prime win the Heisman?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
All right,
he won the Jim Thorpe, and I don't have that, so I got to get a gold jacket too.
Okay,
Ooh.
all right.
Speaking of that, you were named the best college football player last year. You won the Heisman. I saw the elation, the emotion in your face when your name was announced. If you could put into words what that meant to you to be named the best college football player last year, what would those words mean?
It was great. You know, it didn't come so real until we got in the building. Yeah. You know, I was always nervous the whole day. So me getting that call and that nomination and me being the Heisman Trophy winner meant a lot to me and my family.
Watching on Saturdays, Travis play. Are you a trash talker? It didn't seem like you were a trash talker much. Do you?
Nah, I don't really talk trash. I just go out there and play football.
That's what it looked like to
I'm
me.
running too much to be trying to talk trash.
When you're playing 120 plays,
exactly.
you don't have time to
You got to catch your breath in between.
Let me
plays.
ask you this: are there going to be any text exchanges or phone calls if you go higher than number 5, where Coach Prime went, and you go before Shador? Are there going to be some conversations about you being number 1 in that sense?
Nah, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not going to be no competition because that's just the pick. I got to still put in the work.
Right, that's right.
I like that. I'm going to ask you this, Trav. Again, you play on both sides of the ball. What do you enjoy more, picking off a quarterback or catching a touchdown?
I mean, the more time you can get in the end zone. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I get in the end zone, I can pick them off and get in the end zone or catch them touchdowns. So it doesn't matter to me.
This might be a tough question. One of my favorite plays from the Colorado season didn't involve you. I think you might have been on the sidelines, but the LeJohntay Wester touchdown at the end of the game against Baylor. That's right.
I was not on the sideline. I was definitely in the game.
Oh, yeah, you were in there. I don't take that from you. Is there a play, either you or team-wise, that sticks out from last season? Because you have a highlight reel worth of stuff in just 1 or 2 weeks, it feels like.
I mean, I did force a fumble, but I'll probably say the pick six that.
Oh, that's right. That forced fumble was a big play. My bad. That's right. You set it up.
That and the Hail Mary was good, but also the pick six that the other corner got, DJ McKinney. You know, that was the only pick six we had this year, so I was definitely excited for him.
At receiver, were there any defensive backs you went against this year that you were like, you know, that guy can really get after it? Or even opposite as a corner. I know you went against Tetero McMillan this year. Or were there any receivers that really stood out to you?
Yeah, McMillan, he was good. T-Mac, he's good. You know, that's my boy. We've been competing since the last year of high school. So, yeah, that's my boy. He's been always really good, great, and a tough opponent to play against. And, yeah, it's been a couple corners, but I can't give you names. I'm not that in tune with the players, but it was also some great corners.
All right, you know what Travis is in tune with is he's a big fisher.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you blind rank these fishing terms, these fishing moments. You tell me 1 through 5. You're not going to know what's come next. You just rank them, and we'll go down the list. All right,
Gotcha.
You ready?
Yeah.
Casting the perfect line. Where does that rank, 1 through 5?
Casting the perfect line, 3.
Telling fishing stories. You sit around telling fishing stories in a rocking chair on the front porch.
That's like 2. You know,
oh,
great.
for real?
It's like great stories.
Okay.
Man. You gotta listen to them. I was just talking to, can't give the team, but I was talking to a team about fishing. Okay. We sat down for probably like 20 minutes outside of our meeting talking about fishing.
All right, seeing a fish that you're trying to catch, see him jump out the water off the boat.
What you mean? Like
a big tuna jump out the water, maybe like 30.
we ain't doing tuna. We ain't doing no
lake fishing.
Yeah,
lake fishing. Okay.
A bass.
Say
Say a bass hit the line and jump.
Oh, yeah, that's one. That's one for sure.
Okay, gotcha. All right, first catch of the day.
That's like 5.
Not a big deal?
Nah.
Because you're getting started.
Catch a lot of fish.
And finally, catching the big one. Where's that? What's left? What number we got left?
Oh, that's supposed to be 1, but it's 4.
Okay, all right.
Catching big fish.
All right. You want to do this or that?
Well, yeah, I was asking one more question before we do this and that. Travis, right now, name me your top 5 receivers you can't wait to go against in the NFL at corner, and then the opposite way, right? At receiver, name your top 5 corners that you want to go against.
It's not no top 5, man. I'm just ready to go out there and compete. I don't have a top 5 on either. I don't got no target on nobody back. I just want to go out there and compete and help my team win as best as I can.
Okay.
He's battling one dude, Traivs Hunter.
That's it.
Hey, let me ask you if teams have talked to you about this, or if this is your decision in terms of the drills, in terms of wide receiver, DB drills. Have you decided how that might work?
Yeah, just go work out with both.
Are you going to do both? Okay, all right.
That's what they're telling me to do, but no, I'm not doing anything here. I'm not doing anything here. I'm waiting until my pro day.
Oh, okay, even better. Now we got you. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to play a quick game before we let you get out of here. This or that. Going to name 2 wide receivers at a time. You tell me which one you'd be more excited about locking down in the NFL. All right? So 2 guys. Here we go. A.J. Brown or Garrett Wilson?
A.J. Brown.
A.J. or Malik Neighbors?
Malik Neighbors.
Malik or C.D. Lamb?
C.D. Lamb.
C.D. or Puka Nacua?
C.D. Lamb.
C.D. or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
C.D. Lamb.
Here we go. C.D. or Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek Hill.
All right. Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase?
Jamar Chase.
And finally, Jamar or Justin Jefferson?
Jamar.
Chase.
Jamar.
I'm a huge Jamar Chase fan, but I love Justin Jefferson too.
Yeah,
I love them.
It's hard not to love all those guys.
That's probably like I went to all the games when they was in.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to go to get to every game that they was playing in when they was in the 2019 LSU team. So
that team turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, it did.
And you know what? If Travis was of age, he'd have been one of the stars on that team
for
as well.
sure.
You love Justin Jefferson. Me and Lige love Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, Colorado, Heisman Trophy winner. Going to try to outdo Coach Prime. We'll check back in 15 years.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Travis.
Appreciate you, Travis.
No problem.
With the first pick here in Indianapolis 2025 Combine, Ryan Wilson, Lige Douzable. I got Coop Petagna from 247. So we just heard from Travis Hunter, and I think we broke a little news here, Lige. Travis informed us that he's going to work out at his pro day, not at his Combine. Shout out to producer Noah for getting that question in. So what are your first impressions of that?
Not overly surprised. You know, a lot of the top guys are going to go most likely top 5 group. They don't work out at, the Combine. They work out at their pro day where they're more comfortable right now. I did like your follow-up question because you asked him, is he going to work out as a receiver? Is he going to work out as a cornerback? And he said NFL teams want him to do both. So not overly surprised he's not going to work out here. We already heard Shedeur Sanders is not going to throw here. Abdul Carter, we know he has an injury that just came out. He's not going to work out here. He was coming off a shoulder injury anyway, so he wasn't going to work out. But not overly surprised that Travis Hunter isn't working out.
So Lige Coop knows these guys from high school.
Correct.
Through the college experience, through the portal, and then once they get to the NFL. So you've had a personal journey with Travis Hunter, so to speak. I would imagine based on the years you've seen Travis play, you're not necessarily concerned about what his NFL future looks like while he works out at the Combine?
No, not at all. But I'm a little curious because you go all the way back to high school. We don't have verified metrics on Travis Hunter.
Okay.
Right? So this is a guy that never ran track and field. He played basketball. He was a dominant player. But we've never seen a 40. So I'm curious. We know he's fast. How fast is it going to be? Is it going to be low 4.3s? Is it going to be high 4.2s? He's going to be in the upper echelon, obviously, of testing. We're going to have to wait till pro day. I was eager to see it. So more curious. I don't think it matters either way.
It'd be interesting. Does he actually do the 40?
I was going to say, what if he runs a 4.4?
I mean, what if he doesn't run at all?
I'm fine with that.
I can see him not running at all because, to your point, Coop, when you turn on the tape, he's plenty of fast. Right, you see him separate at receiver, at corner. You see him being able to trigger and get downhill. He understands route concepts. He's just a great football player. So, whether he runs a 4, even if he runs a 4.4, I don't think teams will actually care because that's plenty enough speed.
And I keep coming back to it, and we keep forgetting. I have to keep reminding ourselves. Brian Branch, Kyle Hamilton didn't run great 40 times. Cooper Kupp, great players. Puka Nacua. We sometimes overthink it. So. If I don't, I'm gonna put this on. My bold prediction. I don't care if Travis Hunter runs a 4.8. I'm taking him top 3 all day long.
No matter what.
But I want to talk to Coop because, again, I said Coop has a vast understanding of these players for years. Yep. And you went into the 247 archives, and you have some deep cuts in terms of playing percentage and what that balance might look like for Traivs Hunter, who played on average, it felt like 120 snaps a game last year for Colorado.
Yeah, it's interesting. You go all the way back to high school, and Leger and I were kind of talking about it. This was a guy that was extremely productive. 3,600 yards receiving throughout his career at Collins Hill in Georgia. He had 46 touchdowns. He had 19 INTs. So he's been doing it at a high level for a really long time. You look at his snap count, though. Over the last 2 years, 1,400 plus this year. 2023, over 1,100, right? So you think about that, and then you go all the way back to high school. Missed 5 games with an ankle injury. You go to his freshman year, missed 5 games at Jackson State with another lower extremity, lacerated liver, right, just a year before, and then 2 games this year he couldn't finish. So I think it comes down to durability,
right,
and how do you protect Traivs Hunter. So as much as the conversation wants to be about, hey, this guy's going to be a two-way guy, but in a 17-game regular season, how do you protect him?
Right.
How do you get the most out of him? And how do you maximize a profit? That's going to be the conversation.
Hey, before you go, I want you to answer this, but we talked about this in the fall. One of the, not necessarily concerns you had, but one of the things you were interested to see was how does a slight frame go up against the A.J. Brown playing press man, for example. But to Cooper's point, how does that translate into load management, to borrow an NBA term?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, me and Cooper are actually having this conversation. And when you talk about him measuring up to a former player, Sauce Gardner is kind of like right, same type of frame. And that's what people are worried about with Sauce Gardner. Like with physical receivers, would he get knocked off the ball? Well, he put back-to-back all-pro seasons together, so that wasn't an issue for him as well. And then you worry about, could he stay healthy with that slight frame? Not only because of all the snaps he's taken on offense and defense, but just because body type, right? And then we saw Sauce Gardner. This was kind of like the first year he was kind of banged up. Other than that, he didn't miss any time. So I don't think that's overly concerned. The thing is, with teams in a 17-game season, like you said, Coop, you got to be cognizant of how many snaps you're putting on his body, right? It's one thing to do that at the college level, which, again, is unheard of. But these are grown men in the NFL, right? You're playing receivers. Physical guys are going to try to jam you at the line of scrimmage. You're playing cornerback. Physical guys like A.J. Brown are trying to get off the press, right? That wears on your body. So, yes, I know Traivs Hunter wants to play both sides of the football, but I think for him to get the best out of Traivs Hunter, he's going to have to be on one side of the ball and maybe moonlight on the other side.
I just want to say this quickly. We just showed a graphic for people listening of most receptions by a player in NFL history with 10 or more interceptions. Deion, Pat P., Mike Vrabel made the list. That's how much of a baller.
That's hilarious.
Mike Vrabel
tied in the red zone.
That's right. Came out of Ohio State, played for the Steelers for a while, and obviously made his bones in New England. I also want to come back to you, Coop, because you talked on the walk over here about the Deion Sanders connection in terms of the two-way and all that he was able to do. In 1996, something happened, I believe?
Yeah, I was 4 years old, so I had to dig it up a little bit. But, I mean, you go all the way back to his head coach at Colorado, Jackson State, 1996, Deion Sanders. 50% of offensive snaps he played, 80% of defensive snaps. Now, the biggest thing we keep talking about is kind of durability, right? So I think that's really kind of what it comes down to with Traivs Hunter. He has the ability to do it. But, Leger, you and I were talking about it. Where do you get the most premium value out of Traivs Hunter? And from a play strength standpoint, I think the biggest question mark is probably on the offensive side of the ball. The other thing, the instincts jump off the tape. You talk about that production that we talked about, 19 interceptions in high school, what he's done in college. That's hard to find. And then you look at Sauce Gardner. We've seen a guy with a similar frame have a high level of success. You're talking about a guy that's already an all-pro in the league. So I would aim towards maybe seeing him in the light of a cornerback where situationally maybe critical moments later in the season, hey, let's find a way to get him on the side of the offensive side. Let me ask you this, because Sauce
Gardner, and I think he's a little bit of Garrett Wilson in his game, the 2 first-round picks of the Jets.
Finally, right?
Let me ask you this. Who provides more production for the Jets, Garrett or Sauce?
That's a really good question.
Because I think that might inform how we want to use Travis.
I would say before this last season, Sauce.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And to Cooper's point, try to find those top-end corners with those instincts. It's a lot harder than to find receivers. Right? I go back to one of the greatest cornerbacks in this game, Champ Bailey. He came out publicly and said, I moonlighted at Georgia, but Travis, you have to probably be a corner and moonlight at receiver because it's just too hard to be the very best at both because you put so much into your game on one side of the ball that it kind of takes away from the other side of the ball. I know we talked about that with Travis, too, with some of his not having polished route running, right? And sometimes on defense, him maybe being a little fatigued. If he was able to just lock in on one side of the football and then moonlight on the other, I think that's when we get the premium Traivs Hunter.
Well, one of the things that our colleague Brian McFadden says, and I was talking to you about this, Dick LeBeau used to tell the Steelers defenders, offensive coordinators got big egos. Mm-hmm. And while the plan might be to use Travis for a handful of snaps, and it's crunch time, and you're like, oh, I can use him for this. And I just wonder if there's not a strict plan in place if he sees a little overuse because the team's struggling, they need some productivity on offense, and that's just something I wonder about. Now, I think he could do it, but the whole point is that does he have the frame to handle it for 5-6 months? And I think the answer is probably no.
No, and that's the thing, right? It's all going to depend on where he goes, right? Because if he goes to New England, they're probably going to use him probably more on offense than other teams.
He'd be wide receiver one.
Exactly. Well, if you look at the Giants, right, they have actually some pretty good receivers, so they probably wouldn't highlight him as much on offense. They need a corner in the worst way. So where the New England Patriots actually have an all-pro corner, Christian Gonzalez already. So it's going to determine on where he goes, right? To your point, Ryan, wherever he goes, if they're a little weaker on offense, maybe they do use him more there. But if he goes to a team where they're pretty solid on offense, he's going to be a starting corner.
Coop, before we go to break, let me ask you this, because, again, you've seen these guys since high school. In terms of sheer freakish athleticism, you've seen Ryan Williams, you've seen Jeremiah Smith up close and personal. Where does Travis Hunter rank on that Coop Petagna big board?
He's up there. He's in that conversation. The other guy you mentioned, Jeremiah Smith, right? I mean, he's kind of a different freak of nature in his own category. I think the only drawback, we continue to talk about it, with Travis Hunter is really kind of the frame, and that's maybe not where he stacks up with a guy like Jeremiah Smith. So, but in terms of freak of all freaks, right, the number one player in the class of 2022, this is a guy that every event he showed up to, he's dominated, right? And that gave us the conviction to rank him where we rank the player. And I think that's the other thing you got to talk about, the competitive temperament of this kid. He's a winner. And everything that he does, he's foaming at the mouth. So I love that. And I think these front offices, these organizations, they got to protect him from himself because he will do everything he needs to do to help the team get a win.
And by the way, a little vindication for producer Noah, Florida State alum, because he was still angry about Travis chucking that hat on signing day when he didn't go to Florida State, ended up going to Jackson State. I think it worked out okay for Travis.
For sure.
In the long run, won the Heisman. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Abdul Carter news. We're going to get into the stats of what these tight ends might do athletically, because they are some dudes in this draft class. We'll talk about that right after this. Welcome back to With the First Pick 2025 Combine, Indianapolis, Indiana. Ryan Wilson, Lige Douzable, Coop Petagna. And, Lige, I'm going to come to you first. We're going to talk about the Abdul Carter development, which happened close to midnight last night. I'd been asleep for probably 3 hours. You were able to handle the news then. We found out a little more now. Talked to Jonathan Jones, our insider, and it's not yet quite determined what he's going to do surgery-wise or not. It's called a stress reaction, which is a precursor to a stress fracture, if I'm understanding correctly. And you explained to me that players don't necessarily like to go under the knife if they can avoid it. So to talk a little bit about that and what it means for Abdul.
Yeah, I had something similar with an ankle injury, and it was a scenario where, like, if I stayed off my foot weight-bearing for, like, 2 months, like I could do the elliptical, do other light stuff, yoga, stuff like that, and they were doing MRI and nothing changed, and I was good for the season. I ended up playing 10 years. Now, again, there is some damage along the way that I've had to deal with, right? And there's going to have to be some surgery in the future. But if it's something similar to that, and he talks to the medical team and they say, well, just stay off it for 2 months. You can do some light stuff. And if nothing changes, you'll be fine to go, right? Because like you said, Ryan, as players or anybody, I would assume, just doesn't like to have surgery because there's so many things that can happen when you have surgery, right? There's infection that could happen, right? You can go in there, maybe you find something else. Maybe something goes wrong in the surgery, right? Or maybe even your rehab and your process to get back takes a little bit longer than the 8 weeks that they told you. So this is where his agent, the medical staff, have to come together and make the best decision for his future, right? I don't think it'll affect where he goes in the draft because he's such a freak athlete and the traits are out of this world. But there is going to be a decision that has to be made for Abdul Carter.
And one of the things Jonathan Jones mentioned in terms of the procedure and the potential effects on draft stock, Tyree Wilson a few years ago at Texas Tech had a foot. We saw him in the Senior Bowl walking around, not working out because of it. He had played a lot more football, and Abdul is certainly a little twitchier and a little younger in his development, and I don't think this is quite as serious. It's just me not making a medical opinion, just me speculating. But I want to talk about quickly, Coop, and come to you about these tight ends. They're slew of Michigan guys. We talked to a lot of them. A lot of them aren't working out. Kenneth Grant has a hamstring. I do appreciate that Mason Graham is going to do 45 on the bench press, but he's doing bench press only.
Yeah.
Will Johnson's not working out. He had the turf toe over the course of the season, and we'll see what happens at his pro day. And then finally, Colston Loveland, we talked to him. He had his arm in a sling, just had shoulder surgery. And Coop, I want to get your thoughts on this tight end class overall, but you can start with your story about Colston, coming into high school in Idaho and tipping the scales at a
whopping
163. I mean, you think about that. That was in 2020. I think he was a freshman. He came out in 2022, hovering around, 245 pounds right now. So you're talking about a 80-pound transformation there that has happened.
By the way, I can gain 80 pounds in 4 years, too. I'm just saying.
That strength conditioning department, you got to give them a ton of credit.
For sure.
With what they've done there in Michigan. But this is a really late developing position to evaluate in high school. Some of the guys that find their way into the top 250 are guys that have made their jump from their junior to their senior season, and guys that have played multiple positions in high school. You think about this group here at the Combine, 5 of these guys were quarterbacks in high school. You look at Tyler Warren was a guy like that. 19 of the 21 were multi-sport background type of guys as well. So the only other guy, there's 2 guys, Bringstool and then Mason Taylor, who's a son of a Hall of Famer, right? So he can afford to be a one-sport specialist. So, the other things we kind of look at, the high jump, there's 3 guys that cleared 6 feet. Elijah Arroyo, one of those guys that's garnering some first-round buzz. So there's some traits here, especially with the basketball background. Such a subjective position when you talk about the importance of spatial awareness, right? And these guys playing quarterback, understanding the anticipatory part of the game, I think that goes a long way.
Hey, I know you're a soccer guy. Were you a multi-sport guy otherwise?
I was. So I played soccer all the way up until 10th grade. I played basketball all the way up until my senior year. And the only reason I didn't play my senior year because I had already signed my letter of intent.
Yeah.
And I didn't want a chance maybe getting hurt and not playing football.
No, I get it.
Yeah, I played football and basketball all throughout high school. And all the way up until 9th grade, I played soccer.
Did that help? Football-wise?
Soccer, 100%. Like, this is why I tell all defensive linemen, like, when you're little, not that you're going to be a defensive lineman. Well, some guys are just bred to be defensive linemen.
Right.
But as far as the footwork, soccer definitely helps in regards to, elevating your game at the next level with football. I tell people all the time, I got a lot of my athletic ability by playing soccer when I was younger.
Hey, Coop, let me ask you this, because you talked about the difficult journey in evaluating tight ends, probably because they weigh between 200 and 225 coming out of high school. When you go back and look at some of those names that were maybe 4 or 5 stars, does that list vary more than in other positions because of that?
Yeah, I would think so. A couple guys that we had at Oregon that we signed that I'm proud of, Maliki Matavao finished at UCLA. Terrence Ferguson was another guy. Terrence Ferguson was a receiver and a guy that had a dynamic basketball background, but a guy that didn't have any inline tape. And I think that's the biggest thing. Trying to find these traditional wide tight ends that can bang in line, that is really hard to find. That's a really difficult skill set to find at the collegiate level. And a lot of those guys are over-recruited at that level. So that is a developmental trait that you have to find. But the Colston Loveland of the world, that guy was a dynamic guy from a receiving skill set and then had what you wanted from an ability to develop at Michigan in the Big Ten and do whatever it takes to contribute and add value at the line of scrimmage.
And we saw Harold Fannon's name on the graphic there at Bowling Green, and no bigger fan than Lige. He told us, talking to teams, they'd like him, in line.
I was telling people this the other day. I think, and I said this to Colston Loveland when we had the interview, I don't think people really lean into his skill set as a blocker. Like, again, he's only 245, but the fact that he has the willingness to do it, right? And then I think there's so much, because you talked about it, I believe he's only going to turn 21 when the season is about to start.
Colston, in a couple weeks, he'll be 21.
So, Harold's very young, too.
He's also very young, that's
exactly.
right.
So they can grow more into that frame, right? So, like, I know Harold Fannin, we were both at the Senior Bowl, and the biggest thing for him is he kind of wanted to highlight his blocking skills, that he could be an H-back, that he can be out wide, that he could be a lead blocker as well. So there's so many different things you can do with him. And talking about Harold Fannin, I turned on that Penn State tape, and I'm like, he's more than willing to block, right? So people saying that you got to have a certain package for him. No, he can be a wide tight end. You just got to be creative if you're an offensive coordinator and move him around to get the advantageous matchups that you want. You saw the graphic right there. I mean, nearly 50% of their receiving yards is unheard of from the tight end position.
That's right. He did okay last year. Before we take a break, let's talk quickly about this running back class. And Coop, is there anything that strikes you as unique about this group? Because it is an absolute deep group of young men in that position.
Yeah, don't be fooled by the speed, at least what we do, evaluating these guys out of high school. And I'm going to tell you a guy right now, Quinshon Judkins, okay?
My guy, Coop. That's what I'm talking about. I've been trying to get Rye to get on the Quinshon Judkins board.
Well, let me tell you this. I have to make up for what I did out of high school. I had a mid 3-star grade on him, and this was a guy, he ran 11.98. And he ran 4.85, and I'm thinking, okay, where's the value, right?
Now,
where's the long
11.800, 4.8540.
Correct, and this is a guy you watch from the day that he stepped on campus in Oxford and what he's been able to do throughout his career, what he was able to add with Traivs Henderson this past year in Columbus. He's got a tenacity, the way he plays the game, he's physical, and the game is not played with long speed, right? It's important to have.
That's an important point.
I think everybody wants that, but the vision, the balance, the patience, those are really, really important traits when you're looking at running backs. So there was only 5 guys out of 31 running backs in this group that ran sub 1,100 meters. It's just kind of fascinating to say, all right, let's not overvalue the time speed. What does it look like when these guys are playing between the white lines?
And that's incredibly important because I think Le'Veon Bell ran a 4.6 something. I mean, and what, how many times you hit an 80-yard home run on a trap play, for example. And I know you're a Quinshon guy. Yeah. Can I liken Quinshon and Trevion at Ohio State to what Jameer and David Montgomery do at Detroit?
Sort of.
Are they a little closer in what they bring to the table?
I think they're a little bit more closer.
That's
Gibbs is a out-of-this-world athlete. Like, literally, Gibbs can line up at slot and probably get you 60 catches a year. Like, that's the skill set that he has. Travion has soft hands, and Quinshon Judkins has soft hands out of the backfield as well. I don't think people talk about that enough in this game. But to Cooper's point, like, I think people get too enamored with the speed. Like, I go back to the Marshall game, and he breaks one for 70, and the safety has the angle, and he doesn't even get close to him. Like, so he's plenty of fast. But to his point, the biggest thing for a running back is your vision, right? Can you get the dirty yards? And Quinshon Judkins looks for contact. Like, the first guy never brings him down on tape. Every time I turn on tape, first guy always miss. And then he makes the second guy pay. And then he gets the dirty yards, the 4 or 5 yards. That's where you want to live as a running back because it's all about staying ahead of the chain, staying ahead of the sticks. You don't want somebody to bounce out and try to get a home run every single play. And that's what Quinshon Judkins provides. He provides you those dirty, gritty yards, but he also has the ability to break long runs if you need him to.
All right, before we get out of here, Coop, I know Lee J's answer, but I'll let you go first and Lee J can follow. If you're a team, are you taking Traivs Henderson first at Ohio State, or are you taking Quinshon Judkins first?
It's maybe more of a bias for me. I think Travion's going to test better for sure. But Judkins, the way that he plays, and I think the other thing that they're looking at here, and Ryan Day did these guys a service. They did a service to each other being in the same backfield last year. I think the tread on both these guys, I think that was really, really beneficial for Quinshon Judkins. But me personally, I'd go Judkins. I love the play style.
And you're still in the Judkins?
You already know my answer.
Okay.
I'm taking Quinshon Judkins. Again, love Traivs Henderson. I just like Quinshon Judkins a little bit more.
Me and Traivs running our 4-4. Looking back, waving at you guys. No, you're right. They're both great players and both had fantastic seasons, obviously. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, and, I mean, he's already told us who his stud is, but he's got a few more. We're going to tell you who our guys, can't-miss guys are at this combine. Looking ahead to the draft. We'll talk about that right after this. With the first pick, back with you here at the 2025 NFL Combine, Indianapolis, Indiana. All right, boys. These are guys we're convinced will be studs. And Coop has been on this young man since he was playing volleyball in high school. So I'll let Coop start, and I'll name your guys, Coop, and we can talk as much or as little as you want you to. Tetero McMillan. Our buddy Pete Prisco's finally coming around, said he watched more tape on it. He thinks he's going to be a pretty good player.
Oh, finally.
Finally. Jalen Walker, we talked to him. That young man is a great human being and a baller. And then finally, Mason Taylor, who you alluded to earlier, his dad, Jason Taylor, pretty good pro.
Yeah, I think all these guys you start with, they're all pros, right? I mean, you think about Tetero McMillan. He played a high level of football in high school, Servite High School, played both ways, too. Played with his teammate Noah Fafita. But you look at the last 2 years, what he's done, over 1,300 yards receiving. The other part, you think about the frame, 6'5", big, 210 pounds plus. And I watch him. Leger, you and I were kind of talking. Who are some names that kind of come up a little bit? You brought up Drake London.
Drake London, yep.
I kind of think Mike Evans a little bit. Now, it's not the explosiveness maybe of Mike Evans, but in terms of the route runner, the fluidity, I certainly see the Drake London. I think the biggest question mark is the separation really at the catch point. But the biggest part about that, we totally underestimated his ability at the catch point. You talked about that volleyball background. He's got Velcro hands. I love his focus, the intensity, the play strength, and then different speed with the ball in his hands as well. And then Jalen Walker, I mean, you just want to talk about a guy that's a box checker across every single category. And this is a guy that had 80 blocks in high school. That's a school record on the basketball court, so on the hardwood. So a very intense kid here that can play on ball, off ball. You can watch him. He can do a lot of different things. The conversation's all around Abdul Carter. This is the guy that I circle right here and say somebody's going to get a 10-year pro and an all-pro at that. And then Mason Taylor, the son of the Hall of Famer that we talked about, all he did, career receiving yards at LSU, school receiving yards, and then school receptions as well. That's a storied program, and we like to talk about guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. All this guy did was show up when it counted. You go back 2 years ago, overtime game, who'd they go to? They went to Mason Taylor. This is Mr. Dependable. He's not going to be the day one conversation, but you talk about another guy that is a high floor value target. That's Mason Taylor. I think he's going to play the game for a really, really long time.
Lee J, before we get to your list, I stole this from Coop in the fall, and I've been using it. I've been attributed to him occasionally. Sometimes I steal it my own. But I'm paraphrasing here, but he said basically Ted McMillan, 50-yard bombs are just like a handoff. That's how –
he's going to get it.
How good he is at the catch point, even if he's not necessarily creating separation. Your guys, and I encourage folks, after you watch this, go to YouTube and watch Lee J and I's interview with Jahdae Barron, because this young man, in terms of talking the game, is the first overall pick. So Jahdae Barron out of Texas, and then you are on the Carson Schlesinger linebacker UCLA train as well.
I am. Jahdae Barron, again, I would encourage everybody, again, after you finish watching us, to go on YouTube and watch that interview. The way he speaks about the game.
Passionate.
Like Ryan, it was funny, me and Ryan were talking, he was just like, when Jahdae was talking, you just see the smile from the back of my head. Like, we were literally up here just talking football. There's a reason he won the Jim Thorpe Award. One of the most instinctual, smartest players in this draft class. You talk about Swiss Army knife. This guy played dime linebacker. He played slot corner. He played some safety. He played corner. And I think the thing that really resonated from that interview we had with him was how he talked about if he knows he doesn't do his job at a high level, how much stress it could put on somebody in the slot or at safety.
Because let me interrupt you, because you've worked with, you play with guys who don't want to take responsibility, correct, I would imagine. So to have that solves a lot of problems.
Teams had to eat that up, right, because they know he's accountable, and they know not only is he mentally smart and physically sharp out there on the field, but that he's not going to leave his teammate hanging, right, because he knows he's been in that position. So, again, he was already the guy that was my number 2 corner behind Traivs Hunter, depending on if you have him as a corner or receiver. But honestly, I would not be mad if somebody took him in the top 10.
You're funny because as soon as he walked off the set, you looked at me with big saucer eyes and said, he might be a top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick, man. The physicality he plays with, the instincts that he has, the versatility that he plays with. Again, the way he just talks about football, you know this kid loves football and he loves to compete.
And by the way, we talk about Traivs Hunter doing a couple things. Jahdae might do more things in the secondary than Travis does, for example.
I don't think anybody in this draft does more on one side of the ball than Jahdae Barron does. And that says a lot about his mental capacity, right?
All right, you've been trying to sell me on Carson Schlesinger. I like him. I don't love him. You love him. And outside of the Jalen Walker, Jihad Campbell situation,
he's the guy.
You like him as the LB1.
He is the guy. Now, I love Kobe King as well from Penn State.
Fun player.
But when you're talking about pure stand-up linebacker, Mike linebacker, because Jalen Walker highlights as an edge rusher. Jihad Campbell, then you could tell me a little bit more about him, Coop. He actually was an edge rusher, and they moved him to off-back ball linebackers. I think they were so deep at the edge at Alabama. And on tape, you can kind of see both of those guys are athletic. They have some instincts, but it's kind of like see ball, get ball. But when you're talking about pure instincts, Carson Schlesinger, he just knows where the football is going to be.
What game did you make me watch to make sure I understand?
Me and Ryan, again, after this show, we're going to watch the Penn State game.
Again?
We're going to watch it one more time to make him a believer, because what him and Femi Oladejo did versus that Penn State offense was unheard of. It was a two-man wrecking crew. And the thing that I also like about Carson Schlesinger, he has an edge to him. People forget this guy was a walk-on. He had to earn his stripes, became an All-American. And he talks that trash, which I love, too.
You like that, right?
I love that. He's got some bark and bite about him. So, I don't think people are talking about him enough. you're talking about pure off-the-ball linebacker, he's my number one guy because, again, Jalen Walker, Jahad Campbell, they can highlight as rushers off the edge. And then in a draft, I would take them before him because you can do more with them.
Right.
But if you're talking about a guy that's going to control my huddle and be where he's supposed to be and knock your face off, it's going to be Carson Swessington.
Top 50, you like him?
Oh, he's going top 50.
Top
he's
40?
Going top 50.
That's around the range, you feel?
I feel like that's the range.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Make a note. All right, my guys. And, I mean, this guy won a national title, so did his teammate, but I don't know if we're yet talking enough about him. And when we do talk about him, I feel like it's in disrespectful tones. Jack Sawyer, edge rusher at Ohio State. My other guy is Emeka Egbuka, he's a professional receiver. He's a guy coming day one. He's going to be a great teammate. He's going to catch 50, 60 balls his rookie season and go from there, and a guy you can count on to do everything for wherever you want to line him up. And then Amari Hampton, who you mentioned earlier when we were talking the running backs, we haven't talked a lot about the running backs, and I think he's going to test well, Coop, and he's a big back. And I do – Willie Lampkin's one of my favorite players, the center/left guard for UNC, and I do love the fact that the left guard was smaller than the running back.
I was about to say the running back might be bigger than the guard.
But, Coop, I want to talk to you about Jack Sawyer because I think – not the disrespect, but he's not as twitchy as some of the other guys in this draft class. Fair enough. But the man's motor is second to none. I think he plays stronger than people are giving him credit for. I think he's about 260. We'll find out officially what he weighs. And I just go back to the T.J. Watt draft where he's too stiff, he can't bend, and T.J. Watt took that personally, and he's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Are we overlooking Jack Sawyer because we're falling in love with the shiny objects that are the Abdul Carters and the Jalen Walkers?
Maybe a little bit. It kind of reminds me of the conversation, not to this degree. I don't want to go there, but Aiden Hutchinson and Trevon Walker.
That's a good one.
That's a good one,
So when you think about that conversation and Aiden Hutchinson and what he provides, and all we've seen this guy do is produce every time he steps on the field. And Jack Sawyer, what he meant to that Ohio State team, you're getting a high floor contributor, and I think there's so much value in that and what this guy provides, and from a locker room standpoint as well. He meant everything to the Buckeyes too. So one of those guys, I think the value's got to be right, but certainly going to be a valued addition wherever he ends up.
Let me ask you, as a defensive tackle, do you want a guy that's going to show up every single play and do the dirty work like a Jack Sawyer, or you want a juiced-up edge rusher that's going to get home once every 7 or 8 or 9 snaps?
I was like a Jack Sawyer. That's why I played 10 years in the NFL, right? I did the dirty work. And it'd be interesting to see where teams value that athletic ability versus the production.
Yeah.
Right? We always talk about that, right? Like, you can get enamored with traits, right? But also you want to see somebody have produced on the field. I think there has to be a great balance between this. Perfect example, Shamar Stewart, when we had him, he was a great interview. Doesn't have the gaudy production, right? 4.5 sacks, but he's going to blow this combine up. And will teams look at that and look at the projection of what he could potentially be? Or do they look at a guy like Jack Sawyer and say, well, his production is there, but he might not have as gaudy traits as him? Like, who do we take instead?
He feels like a Detroit Lion all day long. And by the way, Coop, you'll love this story about Lige, who is one to write down slights. First thing he said to me and our buddy Rick Spielman, hey, man, you were the first guy who cut me, and I didn't forget it.
Facts.
All right.
You never forget.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to predict some 40 times. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to With the First Pick, Indianapolis, Indiana. We're at the Convention Center, Lige, along with Coop Petagna, 2025 Combine. And with our buddy Coop here, and he's graced us with some names.
I love this.
Of predicting 40 times, because this is, we're living in an age that you can pretty much bet on anything, and 40 times is one of these things that's become a hot topic. And here's Coop's list of guys that he thinks has a chance to motor down the 40-yard speedway, if you will. Darian Porter, corner out of Iowa State. You like him a little bit better than T.J. Tampa, who came out a year ago. He's going to be faster, obviously. Jimmy Horn out of Colorado. Isaiah Bond, Alabama, transferred to Texas. Jordan Watkins, you guys are big Jordan Watkins fans?
I'm a big Jordan Watkins guy.
Wait a second. Quinshawn Judkins made it on this list. And then O'Marion
Stop
Hampton.
hating.
I'm killing
Stop
you guys.
hating.
All right, so Coop, take us through this. What do you got here with these names you've given us?
So Darian Porter was a guy at Iowa State, really bursting onto the scene this last season. You look at the Senior Bowl, and you look at their GPS data, over 22 miles per hour. All right, so that is only the second time to happen in the last 8 years. The other guy to do that was Tariq Woolen. He ran 4.26.
And
at the
Darian's
combine.
6'4"?
He's pretty tall.
He's a
tall human being for a cornerback.
Very long.
Side note,
guy.
Zay Frazier, another guy from UTSA, he's going to fly too in this draft. I know we talked about him this week as well. I would not be surprised. He runs in the low 4.3s, maybe even 4.2s.
So Isaiah Bond's on that list. I know he's a track guy. Jimmy Horn is on that list. We talked to him at the Shrine Bowl. He ran I think you corrected me. I think he ran 10.51 in the 100, and that translates to scooting as well. Any of these guys you want to hit on? You want to hit on your running back again? Do you think a 4.49 is realistic for Quinshon?
If he runs that, he's definitely going in the second round. I think it's realistic. Again, I go back to that Marshall tape.
The funny thing is, you're not wrong, but we just talked, and Coop explained to us why a 4.6 doesn't matter for the running back.
It doesn't, but I don't think he's going to run that. I'm just saying, like, on tape, again, people talk about him getting hawked down. I forgot what game was that where he got ran down a little bit.
It doesn't matter. I didn't remember.
Yeah, exactly. You go back to that Marshall game, like, he struck out for 70 yards, and the safety had the angle and couldn't even catch him. So, like, I think a part of that towards the end of the year, you know this, Rye and Coop, wear and tear on your body. You're not going to be as fast at the end of the year. So now that he's been about a month since the championship game, body probably healed up a little bit more. Me and Ryan were talking about it. It'd be surprising if he actually ran because it seems like a lot of these guys are dropping out because the season is extended, right? So you don't have as much time to heal up and prepare for the combine. But if he runs anywhere in the 4.5s, he's going second round.
And you still think ahead of Trevion. What if Trevion runs a 4.38?
I don't care. We just talked about that. Like that home run speed. Again, Saquon Barkley was the guy that led the league in most explosive runs, right? Now, so much has to go into that. You have to have the right offensive line, right? A lot of these guys are going to get drafted. They're not going to have the Philadelphia Eagles as their offensive line. So can you get those Quinshon Judkins 4, 5, 30 yards when nobody is, when somebody's unblocked, right? That, to me, is the biggest thing. What's your vision like in the backfield, right? Do you see the hole? Do you run to the hole and be able to make a jump cut at the last second? Like, that's more important than straight line speed. Like, football is not played straight lined. And I think people tend to forget that. They get enamored at the combine. Oh, my God, this guy ran a 4.28. He's not going to be able to run a route at 4.28.
Right.
He's not going to be able to backpedal at 4.28. He's not going to be able to run in between the tackles at 4.28. So none of that matters, right? Again, I think people just overhype that 40-yard dash.
And you told me this. You don't want to be tackling Quinshon Judkins in the fourth quarter
at all.
Trevion Henderson, he might embarrass you said, because of the twitch.
Yeah.
But he's going down a little easier.
Yeah, for sure. I will say Traivs Henderson is probably one of the most unselfish players I've seen in this draft. Like, for him to be on board, to bring Quinshon Judkins in there. And then some of the stuff they asked him to do, like there was times where Will Howard ran quarterback's speed sweep, and he'd be the lead blocker, and he was out there pancaking dudes. So, like, when you talk about the definition of a true team player, that's Traivs Henderson.
So, Coop, the number for Marion Hampton at Underdog right now is 4.46. I think he was a track guy. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but also a thick running back who is pretty juiced up for that size.
He ran 10.71 out of high school. He was 213 pounds at the time. So I'd be putting money on the under on 4.46 there. All
right, so that's the 40 times. But tomorrow, guys, the quarterbacks are coming through here. The wide receivers are coming through here. I suppose we'll talk to Shedeur. Is there anything you want to hear Shedeur say that will make you feel better or worse about sort of what he hasn't said or done yet?
Not really. I mean, he's already come out and said he's not going to throw, which isn't a surprise. When you look at the combine, most of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, they traditionally haven't thrown. I mean, the top 3 guys didn't throw last year.
Right.
So not surprised by that at all. So just be good to get a feel for him again. I know we talked to him a little bit at the Super Bowl, but it'll be good to talk to him again.
And I don't know. Coop may not want to talk about this, but he's been on the Cam Ward. He has led the Cam Ward train probably before
I've
anyone.
been up there too.
I think he helped Miami become a better program.
You could say that. Like
no, not Cam. Cam did. Coop did.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Coop has some connections.
Okay.
Coop, any of these other? We have about a minute left.
Can I talk about him real quick?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man. I think he's a competitor. You go all the way back. You think about this guy in high school, right? The offense that he played in, very limited statistical production. You think about his path here to where he is right now, the potential number 1 pick in the draft, 2 years in Incarnate Word, 2 years at Washington State. A lot of people, they nitpick last year when he jumped in the transfer portal, goes to Miami. What's he do? He elevates that team. This is a team that's 3 wins better because of Cam Ward's presence. So everybody wants to talk about, hey, he needs to take care of the football. Yeah, maybe he's a little sloppy at times. Maybe he's got to wear the cape. He had to wear the cape against Cal. He had to wear the cape the majority of the season. He had to be the best player on the field. I love Cam Ward. The other thing I love about him, he's fearless. Absolutely. You put that guy in New York, give it to me all day.
This guy loves Cam Ward so much, he's going to make us go into the promo. That's Coop. That's Lee J. I'm Ryan Wilson. Catch him with the first pick wherever you get your podcast.